Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our finance meeting of Thursday, March 28th. It is 6:01 p.m. and we will call the meeting to order now. We will move, to item 2, which is our land acknowledgement. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattah-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Item 3 on our agenda this week is disclosure of interest. Does anyone have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary disclosures of interest? I see a few heads shaking no, and I see no other hands up, so we will say none. Then we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda they would like? Then I'll ask for someone to move that. Did I see Councillor Vardy's hand up to move that? A seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Charrois. All those in favor of the approval of the agenda, please raise your hand. And that is carried without any noes. Then we will move to item 5, which is the receipt of previous minutes. So tonight we have before us as 5.1, the Finance Committee minutes of January 25th, 2024. Does anyone have noticed any items requiring correction or amendment on it? Councillor Charrois?
Through you, Chair, thank you. Just a question about GDAC. I noticed there was the minutes. We have Councillor Brodsey is going to take Councillor Howe's position. I was just wondering, as far as procedure with, I thought the standing committees it was set up so that nobody could be on a standing committee that's, on an advisory committee that reports to the standing committee. So I'm wondering if there's any policy that anybody knows of that would cause an issue with that.
I don't know that we as councillors, or definitely not our lay members, had any input into it. I hear you, unless Jessica, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Councillor Charrois, are you asking if Dawn's still going to be on that committee?
Through you, Chair. Thank you. No, just I'm wondering whether Councillor Brodsey can technically be on this committee and also on that committee. But if you've already cleared it, then that's fine. I just didn't know if anybody had pointed that out.
Through you, Chair. I believe tonight Councillor Brodsey will be resigning, and then Councillor Howe would be appointed if the committee approves that motion.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Yes, that will be coming near the end of the agenda. And just to clarify that particular item is on our agenda for discussion and approval, theoretically. And then, of course, it still needs to go to council for the approval at that level, and then it becomes effective. And so that's why tonight Councillor Howe is still sitting in the audience here and not sitting up front with all of us. Councillor Vardy.
I asked about this during the review of the various committees, so I imagine it will probably come up in that discussion as well, because I know I raised it. So, thank you.
Councillor, Member Hutchings.
I wasn't going to say it wasn't what's a couple of small things on the minutes, on the Finance Committee minutes. The interim economic development officer, I think interim spelled wrong. Just a small correction. It's on 8.2. I think we asked for the budget for the project, the money, our funds spent to date. I wouldn't say money forecast. I would say forecasted on the project. The word money is it really should be budget forecast.
Yes.
So just rather than using the word money. So when we just have that small change, that'd be, I don't think, these are not for approval, whatever their receipt. Yeah, okay, thank you.
The secretary of our committee is saying that's just an administrative change, and we can go ahead and do that. So then, if there are no other comments or questions on those minutes, we will call for a resolution to approve the Finance Committee minutes of January 25th, 2024, and the Grimsby Economic Development Advisory Committee minutes of March 7th, 2024. If I could have a mover and a seconder, did I get that? No. Member Hutchings and Councillor Charwa seconded that. And then by a show of hands, if all those in favor, please. And that is carried. Item number 6 on our agenda is delegations and presentations. Oh, yes.
Sorry, I just had a quick question in regards to the Grimsby Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes. It's hard to, I sort of accept them, like in the context they are. Like, I mean, meeting minutes are extremely obviously, short. We don't record everything that's said. So, again, just out of curiosity, what is it that we're expected to do when we accept these minutes? Like, when we accept them in the public record, what are we attesting to or accepting?
I think we're really just going through the steps similar to what happens with the Finance Committee minutes, that, the minutes are kept, they are drafted, then they go to council for their approval. I believe it's just one of those necessary municipal steps that, we are accepting them as presented to us, right? I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts. Perhaps our secretary would like to weigh in.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, what you said is correct, and as well, since this is the standing committee and GDAC is the advisory committee, should you folks have any questions about the minutes, or if there's a resolution in there you would like to lift, that's within your power as a standing committee to do so. They've only been received at this level. That was the vote that was just called. And then they would go up to council through these minutes and be approved at council. But it is an opportunity, if you have a question or if there's an action or resolution you didn't agree with or did agree with, you could lift the resolution. So that's another part of the step.
Councillor Charwa.
Through your chair, thank you. These are things that I've raised as well when we had our personal discussions to kind of review the committees. I had mentioned that I didn't think that the lay members felt comfortable approving these things when they don't have all the information. So I have advocated on all of our behalf in that, because I would like everybody to receive fulsome minutes before having to try to make decisions. So we'll see what happens, but I'll keep you posted.
Member Hutchings?
If I can, just to Member Scanova's question. I guess when I look at the minutes, I look at, for as much as I can for accuracy, I wasn't at the meeting, number one. But number two, I look at for implications to finance. If there's any, like we see the GDAC has a huge expenditure, or there's some great economic thing going on in the city that we didn't know about, so that may increase our taxes or revenues or what have you. That's why I kind of look at it from that perspective. But normally, and prove it on that perspective. I can't attest to their accuracy, but I can look at, see if there's any risk or any sort of future revenues or future expenses maybe projected.
Then I believe we have called the vote on that. Just checking with our clerk here. So we will then move on to item number 6, which is the delegations and presentations, and we have none this evening. And then on to agenda item 7, of which we have about 6 different reports this evening. They are listed under our agenda, and the asterisk beside them means they're consent reports. So unless someone would like to actually lift any of them, Member Hutchings?
7-1, 7-4, and 7-6.
7-4 and 7-6. Does would anyone else like anything lifted?
That's just the order you'll follow going down.
Then perhaps what,
And I can fix your
and we
vote for you.
do need a resolution
Yes.
to lift those. So if I could,
Sorry, Counselor, you don't need a resolution to lift them. You'll just consider them first under discussion reports. I just have to change this consent vote for you quickly.
shall we first just approve all the consent ones and do those first, or shall we go through them numerically?
I just have to lift these ones out.
Okay.
And then basically just scratch out.
Okay.
what I agreed.
Then I think we'll go through them chronologically. So 7.1 has been lifted, and that's Finance Report 24-06 on the 2023 Annual Building Permit Fee Report. We're waiting for our clerk to catch up here.
So you'll read that part, then you'll read that, and that's your consent
And we'll
vote.
do that first.
Yes.
And then okay. So what we will do is we will first have a resolution to accept the reports that are listed under the consent ones, and then we will come back to those that were lifted. So the first resolution will say that, and I will read the resolution and then ask for someone to move and second it. Resolved that the Finance Committee hereby approves the following items, and that the various consent items be approved on the recommendation as contained therein, and that is Finance Report 24-07, which deals with the summary of 2023 tax write-offs, Finance Report 24-08, which deals with the 2023 portfolio investments, and the staff memorandum, which is on the, sorry, that's 7.6. No, we are leaving that one in, pardon me. And, but 7.5, Finance Report 24-10 on the 2023 Development Charge Reserve Fund Statements. So those are the three consent reports that we are leaving in, unless anyone has a change of heart before I ask. Yes.
I don't necessarily have a question on 7.3, but I did have a general question about like portfolio investments and the investment policy. So I maybe not necessarily want to lift that, but maybe we can add it to other businesses.
I would say the easiest way is just to lift it and to include it in that, and then you can ask your question at that time. So just to revise that, so the following items will be considered consent items, and just to go through that again, it will be agenda item 7.2, which is Finance Report 24-07 on the tax write-offs. Item 7.3, which is 24-08, has been lifted for some questions. And 7.5, Finance Report 24-10 on the Development Charge Reserve Fund Statements is staying as a consent item.
So, sorry, I just need to make sure I got the right ones. So that stays, that stays.
So 7.2 is staying, and 7.5, and 7.4. No? No, pardon me, 7.2 and 7.5
That's it.
are staying as the consent items.
7.5, okay, so that would be this one, and that.
Which is Finance Report 24-7 and 24-10.
Okay, you know what, I'm just gonna pull it up on the screen for you to read out instead, because that'll be easier, just 1 sec, I'll edit it for you. Okay, so.
We're just going to give our clerk a moment to redraft the resolution so we make sure it's correct. So I'm just going to reread the resolution for everyone. Resolved that the Finance Committee hereby approves the following items, that the various consent items be approved on the recommendations contained therein. Finance Report 24-07, Finance Report 24-10, and that report Finance 24-07 is the summary of 2023 tax write-offs dated March 28, 24, be received as information. And the second part B, that report Finance 24-10 on the 2023 Development Charge Reserve Fund statements dated March 28, 24, be received. And the third, that the Treasurer's Annual Statement of Development Reserve Funds for 2023 be publicly available on the town's website and upon request. And if I could have a mover for that, please. Councillor Vardy, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Sharwa. And then by a show of hands, all those in favor of that resolution? And that is carried. Thank you. Now, we will go back to those items that were lifted, and we will go in order then. So back to agenda item 7.1, which is Finance Report 24-06 on our 2023 Annual Building Permit Fee Report. Perhaps I could just ask our treasurer to walk us through it, or do you just have a question or two about it?
Probably the simplest question our treasurer's ever going to be asked. On page 2 of this report, and because I separated the report, I'm going to ask a second question, but I was only going to, it says transfer to reserve. You know what I'm going to ask? Should not say from? Okay, that's it. I just wanted to clarify. I was reading it going, anyway, okay. Thanks, Andrew. We're on the same page. That's all I want to ask, Madam Chair.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on that particular report? It's good to get our to's and froms correct here. So the resolution reads, resolve that report Finance 24-06, the annual building permit fee report dated March 28, 2024, be received, and that the 2023 annual building permit fee report be made publicly available on the town's website and upon request in accordance with the Building Code Act. And if I could have someone move that. Councillor Sharwa, a seconder, Member Hutchings.
From Member Hutchings.
With the slight amendment to that report. All those in favor of that report with a show of hands, please. And that is carried. Okay, 7.2 was handled under the consent section. Item 7.3, which is Finance Report 24-08, has to do with our 2023 portfolio investments. We will now deal with that one at this time. Does anybody have any questions or comments about it, or would you like our treasurer to walk us through the report first? I'm going to say, Angela, I'll let you walk us through that report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. This is an annual requirement that we provide a summary of statement to the committee. And as you can see, we've broken this out into general reserve and trust and the total interest earned. We also note on the report the amount that was raised through the just cash in the bank, because that's a pretty high interest rate that we're earning at the moment. What I also wanted to note, though, is that the legislation and the requirements that we follow under the Municipal Act applies to the town and to all our boards. So we also manage funding for the other, like the trust funds and the reserves, and we apply all the rules to those as well as any boards and arms of the municipality.
Does anyone have any questions for our treasurer? Member Scandinavo.
No, it wasn't so much about this report itself, just about the investment policy. We had discussed reviewing the investment policy, I think at the initial onset of sort of forming the standing committee. And I think what we're looking at here are like portfolio investments, but I don't think these are the total investments that the town of Grimsby holds. They own, shares in the hydro and so on and so forth, right? So just curious, I've looked at the schedule at the back, and it says review of financial policies as required, and investments are on there, and the policy's effective September 2022. Again, no real rush, but just curious, and understanding that we're in between treasurers and so on and so forth, when we'll get a better chance to have a look at that investment policy, and if the investment policy as it stands today includes like non-portfolio investments, and if it doesn't, will we look to include non-portfolio investments? Sorry, that was a really long question, sorry.
Can I ask our treasurer, would you like to comment?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. We are actually looking at, in anticipation of maybe some interest rate reductions in the future, we are looking at some future investments. We're working with CIBC at the moment. And what we have scheduled and discussed with them is actually having them come on site and update council on our current structure of what we have in the investments, and, recommendations where the economy is going, and maybe recommendations in the future. We could also layer in maybe looking at the investment policy, or, reviewing that with them, because they work with that policy. They're guided by it, so they have a copy, and they're using that as a resource tool so they can comment and make recommendation, but they know we are following the Municipal Act under that. So that's something then, again, with the new treasurer coming on, we'll make sure that we bring them up to speed, and then we'll plan to have that brought forward at a future committee.
So just to give reference back to the work schedule, I think what Member Scandinavo, sort of how it ties in with your comments, is that if we look at that work schedule, approximately what month do you think we might be inviting the investment advisors to come, and might we also be looking at the investment policy? Are we talking September? Are we talking summertime? Can you give us a ballpark?
Thank you, through you. I think, again, without having a conversation with the new treasurer, I would say probably in the summer, maybe or into the September month, depending on other priorities. I know the investment broker could come out anytime, so that's not an issue there.
Perhaps we could just note that in the minutes, that the committee is interested in meeting with the investment advisor and in reviewing the investment policy. And so perhaps the investment policy could just be referred back to staff to update that policy and bring it forth to the committee at the same time when the investment advisor comes to meet with us. Would that make sense in light of your thoughts, Member Scandinavo, or do you have some other thoughts on that?
No, I think we have to start somewhere, so looking at what we have already is a good starting point, so I welcome that thought. And then, of course, meeting the bankers or the investors at their, at some frequency, and then having I guess, if you think about it logically, having the policy available to us, what I'm understanding is sooner, right? Sooner rather than later, just to have a review of the policy. Meeting with the bankers at a frequency determined by the new treasurer, or at a schedule determined by the new treasurer. And then perhaps when we do see the investment policy, we can, if we have any recommended changes, then we can set a timeline for that as well, if there even are any recommended changes. Does that make sense?
Park Treasurer, would you like to comment on that? Does that make sense timing-wise for you?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I think that makes sense. I would think it would be prudent first to review what we have now, have the advisor comment, make maybe recommendations, have input, and then we can take it away and look at, see if that makes sense. And maybe we'll have some changes as well, so make some recommendations at that point.
Okay, then just to summarize, the investment policy as it stands now, the committee would like to have it circulated to the committee for, the next meeting or so. The committee will then provide some input or ideas on anything they see could be considered for updating. And then perhaps we could extend an invitation out to the investment advisor. They also could look at the policy and see if they have any suggestions, and then And then perhaps our staff could put all those suggestions together into an updated policy, if need be, right? Member Hutchings, did you have your hand up?
I seem to be the king of small changes today, correcting interim and the other to and from. Angela, going to kill me. The reserve fund here at the very end, I think you've got two numbers. BMO GIC 5.9 is listed at 3.5 yield rate, and then the opposite for Coast Cap on that last, on the second column, yield rate column versus the name column. You with me? No. Yeah, but look over to the right and the yield rate. They don't match up. So if you look at BMO GIC 5.9, and yield rate's 3.5%. And then the other one, Coast Cap GIC 3.5%, yield rates is 5.09. I think you got them inverted. And we can talk maybe after.
Yeah, sorry.
Member Hutchings, if you could just.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I would like to, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I would, before we make that change, I'd just like to double check that, could just make sure that there wasn't like a premium on that one, so, or a discount when we purchased it, so maybe that's actually the yield. I just want to confirm that one.
Thank you. Thank you. And then second thing is, question, do we ever, who's issuing our debt? The Region of Niagara? Or when we issue debt?
Yes, currently, the last system was through the Region of Niagara through IO, Infrastructure Ontario. I always get it backwards, yes.
Do we ever buy Region of Niagara our own bonds? Because there's nothing here. A lot of municipalities will buy their own bonds back.
Through you, Madam Chair, I haven't seen it here. I have seen it at other municipalities. So yes, I have seen the region being purchased and when it has been offered.
Maybe we can have that a discussion with our investment advisor. That's so thank you.
That sounds good. It sounds like we'll have a number of questions for our investment advisor and our policy. So thank you for raising that, Member Scandinavo. Are there any other questions about this particular report, which is 24-08 on the portfolio investments? If there are no other questions, then I will read the resolution and ask someone to move and second it before the vote. So resolved that report 24-08, 2023 portfolio investments dated March 28th, 2024 be received for information. A mover, please. Councillor Vardy, a seconder. Councillor Charwa. And then by a show of hands, all those in favor, please. And that motion is carried. Now we will go on to agenda item 7.4, which is Finance Report 24-09, having to do with the 2023 Statement of Remuneration and Expenses Paid to Council and Councillor Appointments to Boards. That item was pulled. Does anyone have any questions, or would you like the Treasurer to walk us through that report before your questions? I can do it in either order.
Just had a question, not to the numbers. Just this, I mean, I used to work at the Region of Niagara. I was a treasurer there for a number of years. This policy looks very similar to that, it's very consistent with that. And which it was a number of years ago, I was there, about probably 12 or 14 years ago now. But the challenge we had when I was the Region of Niagara was, and some of the accountants room may understand, it was FIFO. First, first in, first out. Like an inventory system. And what I mean by that was we had 31 councillors in the Region of Niagara, and it was kind of like who came in for the conference first, and clerks didn't really have a good handle on budgeting for all the conferences and what have you, because they didn't know how many people would be going and stuff, and try to do estimates. Other municipalities now are looking at budgets. That's not mentioned here, so each councillor has a training budget of so much dollars, and they also have a discretionary budget. And the discretionary budget can be used if they want to fund the councillors want to fund the local baseball game or the local fundraising activity, or they want to use it for other purposes. Just don't know how it doesn't seem, it seems how we're doing it is kind of the FIFO method still, and where councillors don't really have a budget. They can go to things, and it must be hard for the clerk to budget these things, but just don't know if the council's considering that, kind of giving like responsibility center budgets, whatever they are, to the councillors.
To my fellow councillors on the committee, any thoughts on something like that? Thoughts, comments, to any of us?
Okay, then. So it just kind of, it allows, I'm just going to say from a staff perspective, it allows staff to have there's more control in the budget and things like that. So it's just a suggestion, and I would just thought I would mention it. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy?
So I wonder if you can explain to me why I'm the least paid councillor in the town of Grimsby. Because I pay into OMERS, and I pay CPP still, so why? I think I do. So
I will refer that to our
maybe you could
treasurer.
find out, because I'm sure I'm just as good as the rest of them.
Through you, thank you, Madam Chair. I did ask that question, and I was advised that you are no longer paying CPP. So I will double check and confirm that, and then we can update you on that.
Okay.
Did you-
Yes, thank you.
So the rules generally are if that you're collecting CPP, you give notice to your employer, and then they don't have to withhold CPP from your paycheck. And so this column would include the employer portion of that as well. Could that be the situation?
But then wouldn't I make more money if they're not? Wouldn't I get
Because
that
I
money?
believe that column includes the employer portion of CPP. And so if you're not remitting, if they're not withholding CPP from you, the town is then not matching it in terms of what they have to send, unlike myself, who they are matching it for, which is why my number would be greater than your number. And if you've caught that, that's good. Are there any other questions about that? Councillor Sharwa.
Through your chair, thank you. Just question about, and it's minuscule, but community activities. What is that? What?
Our treasurer?
Thank you, through you. I'm going to look into that $62. I believe it's a fee that was paid on behalf and then just allocated to each of the councillors, but I will double check and get back to you with that. I've had a question with Councillor Vardy as well.
No.
The $62 you're questioning, sorry?
Yeah, under community activities.
The entire column.
Those would be small events in the community and, small community events. Nothing?
So conceivably, it could be something where a fee is charged to the event, but the town covers the cost of our ticket, and therefore that's what is aggregated in there. Would anybody like her to look into it specifically, or are you okay with that? Councillor Sharwa?
Through your chair, thank you. Yeah, I'd just like, if you have times, if you can just break those down, because I'm just curious, like, I don't even know what the $62 are, but there's some, like, all of them, I'd just like to know what they were, if you could. Thank you.
That will be noted. Typically, what we do when we have questions that are outstanding where our staff are following them up for answers is that if an answer is provided by email, it will be provided to all of the committee members at that time. So we don't necessarily need to bring it back to the next meeting because it is so minuscule. But if when you do know the answer, if you could provide it in an email to all of us, that would be appropriate. Thank you. Then, if there are no further questions on that particular report, Then the resolution will say, resolve that Report 24-09, the 2023 Statement of Remuneration and Expenses for members of council and council appointments to boards dated March 28th, 2024, be received for information. And if I could have someone move that, please. Councillor Charwa? Is that a yes? Okay. And a seconder, Member Hutchings. And by a show of hands, all those in favor, please. And that resolution is carried. And then we will move on to agenda item 7.6, the last of the items that was lifted, which is a staff memorandum on the Peach King Center expansion cost update.
We can.
And would you like staff just to walk us through that first?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory, but
Okay.
if I can, I want to thank staff for producing this, and so we can have, to monitor this. I just think that there is one column missing, and it's in the minutes. I kind of correct them. It's the forecasted column. So I know what you budgeted, I know what you spent, and I know the difference, but the forecast may be changing in some of these columns as we go along. That's the part we should be watching to see how it forecasts out versus, I think, and that's what I asked for here is in the minutes. You can see it's just we say money forecasted, but a budget forecast. So if that could be added, I would really appreciate it. This is really well done, and thank you.
Just a question on that. If we add that column in, perhaps what could be done is this report could be updated with that change and come back to the next meeting then. To our treasurer, yes?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just want to state, right now, we didn't have a forecast. It is the budget remaining at this point. It's because we're still in the design stage, but we do anticipate that we will be starting to layer in a forecast, and we will add that in. We could have added it in, and you would just see the same amount, but we will add that in for the next round.
Perfect. Then we don't need to update this particular report. Councillor Charwa?
Through your chair, thank you. So this is a little detail that I've been watching, and I didn't want to push my luck on what we're asking for with the Peach King Center, because it's amazing that we're getting something. But has there been any thought into replacing the equipment that's going to be going in the weight room? Because we do have very old equipment, and it doesn't really make sense to be bringing old equipment into a brand-new room.
Our treasurer, do you know the answer to that?
Thank you, through you. There has been discussions about updating the equipment in the weight room. Again, there's a budget set aside for equipment and materials and supplies. Where all that money goes at the end of the day and how it gets allocated, we'll have to see, but right now it is flagged for replacement.
Thank you. Are there any other questions about this report? So my earlier suggestion that it needs to come back is a moot point because the budget is the forecast, but the column will be added in should the forecast ever change from what is budgeted.
Just one last question.
Member Hutchings?
So to your point, so thank you very much, Angela, for clarifying that. I'm not sure if they're using it. You might know the answer, not know the answer to this, but is Colliers, who the project manager, do they have a cost estimating company that's looking, like doing cost estimation on this as it goes along, Class D and in Class C and that sort of stuff? Yeah. So just when the cost estimator starts doing the cost estimations, that would be great. Okay.
Thank you, through you. I believe, and I'm not sure the order, I think it goes,
It's the highest level and then it goes up from there.
okay, so I think we're in C. We're just still in C, exiting at a C, going into, scheduling into a B. So.
Any other questions from any of the members? Then we have an updated resolution, so resolved that the staff memorandum on the Peach King Center expansion cost update be received for information. If I could have a mover of that, Councillor Vardy, and a seconder, I'll see Councillor Charwa's hands. And by a show of hands, all those in favor, please. And that is carried. That concludes items in the Section 8 of our agenda. Section 9 of our agenda deals with correspondence, and the first item, is item 9.1, which is our water system financial plan update. If I could just give some background on it, and then Angela probably can add to it, but this was a particular study that was done and was presented to the Public Works Committee, where they went through it in some detail and asked a number of questions. And I just thought it was such an excellent report put together to show the adequacy and address so many issues. I think I particularly liked it because, of course, it comes into a financial report and has a balance sheet and things like that. I just thought it was really well done and kind of summarized where everything was at. And I wanted to share that, have it shared with the Finance Committee, because one of the things that is on our list of things to deal with is ultimately to look at our reserves, right? And to look at the adequacy of them. And so, although it came to Public Works and that study was done that way, I would say that's like item 1, check off to say, yes, we can check that one off as being done, and have really appreciated the format of it. And once we have our treasurer on board and we are really ready to tackle all those projects, that list of things that this committee wants to address, I just wanted to share it with everybody as being a really great example of a report on the adequacy of the system and the reserves that are there. Any questions or comments about any of that? Then item 9.2 is our Finance Committee work plan. We had set this a number of months ago and wanted to sort of update it and look at it again, to share it with the committee, to remind everyone that this is the work plan we are working from. Does anybody have any comments, thoughts, amendments, move things up, down, adds? Which one did we want to add in? The investment policy review, yes, that will get added on to the work plan for sure. And when we can once our treasurer starts, because we do have someone, I don't know the official start date or any of the details. But once he does start with us, we'll be sitting down. It is a he. Yeah, sorry. Okay, I confess I met him. And so did Angela. Yeah, so I don't know when his official start date is or anything like that, but when we do have more details, he will come and be introduced to the committee, and at the same time, we will be sitting down and sharing with him that there is a work plan for this committee and getting his input and amendments on it too, or any ideas he has as well. So we just wanted to bring everybody up to date, and when does he start? I don't know. I've actually run out of details to share with you. That is the extent of it. Quite honestly, I don't even remember his last name. So that is the 2 correspondence items just to share with the committee members. And then we'll move on to, I don't think we need to accept the correspondence, do we?
Just received it, yeah, it's just.
Okay. Then let me go back to my formal agenda here. So under correspondence, then, I do need a mover and seconder to receive the correspondence. So resolved that the following correspondence be received: the Water System Financial Plan Update and the Finance Committee Work Plan. If I could have a mover for that. Councillor Vardy, and a seconder. Member Scandinavo? Thank you. And then all those in favor, please, with a show of hands. Thank you. That motion is carried. Now we will move on to item 10, which is other business, and it deals with our committee appointment. So we currently have the resignation of Councillor Bradzi from the Finance Committee and the appointment of Councillor Howe. Councillor Howe has actually been faithfully attending these meetings as a guest for quite a number of months already. So we know he's going to hit the road running here. And so if I could have a mover and seconder to accept the resignation and to accept the appointment of Councillor Howe. Member Vardy, do you have a question or moving
I
that?
just want to acknowledge that he got a haircut for this appointment.
I think he's going to quite enjoy sitting on this committee. We have a sense of humor here as well. Councillor Sharwa.
I just wanted to second that, that's all. And I also noticed your haircut, right? The second I came in, he's looking ready.
Now that we've thoroughly embarrassed our newest member, I'm sure he's going to fit right in. So we have a mover and seconder, and if by a show of hands I could ask for the vote, all those in favor, please. And that is passed unanimously. That brings us to the end of our meeting, unless someone has any other business to raise. If not, then the next Finance Committee is scheduled for Thursday, April 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. And this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
So Veronica, I know what that $62 is for.